Stephen, thank you again. I know we always have this kind of, like we say, this cultural learning at Focus. Stephen's been good at leading that and teaching us different concepts on that. We've been using books to help us frame some of these kind of conversations. Currently, we are on 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel. We got some visibility from him when he came to speak at USC like a while back ago, and me and Stephen with the USC. And Stephen, you've done a great job breaking this down, putting it in a white paper. And thank you again for maybe giving us a little bite-sized chunk of it here.
Yeah. Just to kind of echo what Kurling said, we have this culture of learning within Fokcus, and we're always trying to find ways that we can help each other learn, grow, right? This is something that we do not only internally, but also with startups that we interact with on a daily basis, right? We want to be able to help you as much as you might be able to provide feedback to us, right? And so this is something that, kind of reinforces that culture of learning within Fokcus. And so we wanted to be able to share some of these concepts with everyone through videos like this. And so one that we wanted to cover today was something by a book called 0 to 1, written by Peter Thiel. Like Kurling mentioned, he spoke at USC. He was a co-founder in PayPal. And one of the things he mentioned in his book is these 7 questions that every business must answer. Now, a lot of the ground truths behind these questions exists in a lot of ideas that are presented by a lot of seasoned entrepreneurs, right, that we hear about in the news all the time. And so wanted to start the discussion with some of these things, some of these questions, because we think that there's even thinking about these questions, think about your answer, maybe in the context of your business or, where you are in entrepreneurship, can help people out quite a bit. So we're at the 6th question in this series, 6 out of 7. If you have a chance, feel free to check out the other 5. They're pretty exciting. We'd love to hear your thoughts on those. But the 6th question is, do you think your market position will be defensible 10 or 20 years into the future? And this is kind of a crazy question to think about, right? So one of the things that comes out of this is the ability to create sustained success over the long term, right? There's this idea of you got to have something special, you got to have something that sets you apart, right? Some sort of monopolistic advantage. But a key here is really to step back and ask yourself, what do you think the world's going to look like in 10 or 20 years? And how on earth does my business fit in, right? It's being able to step back and be able to, ask yourself what that's going to look like. And then how does what you're doing today fit in 10 or 20 years from now, right? Or what you're building to, how does what you're, where you expect to be 10 years from now fit in that model, right? In the world, in the future world. So, and that allows you to step back and really kind of think about what's the clear path to durability over the long term for what I'm doing today, right? How does my business fit in?
Yeah, I like that. And, we were just talking about, we discussed like the future is so uncertain, Stephen. Like what kind of guidance would you give a founder on kind of mitigating that in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the uncertainty of the future a lot with our startup, especially over the last 6 or 8 months, right? COVID happened, right?
Yeah,
If you were to ask somebody 2 years ago, who would have predicted, COVID would have happened in 2020, right?
yeah,
It
definitely.
happened in the way it did. Now it created a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, you also have that there is a failure to anticipate, what the world is going to look like. It may not be exactly as you envisioned it, right? Which is sometimes, a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
Now there are some ways to mitigate that. Now there's a couple ways that you could think about that, maybe to mitigate some of those, failures to anticipate what the world's going to look like. And usually those are based on, a lot of those, other than, unexpected events like COVID, are based on misguided assumptions, right? And those assumptions form your basis for the answer to, what the world's going to look like in 10 or 20 years and how on earth your business fits into that model. And a good example of this would probably be the clean tech bubble that happened in the early 2000s. So, in the early 2000s, there was this general idea that like the world is going to be greener, right? We need green technologies. Now, does that mean that, you creating, a green technology, demands that you're going to, be successful? Not by any means, right? But it caused a lot of companies to just create another solar panel, another this, another that, another XYZ, right? Before asking themselves, how does my specific product, how does my business, what I'm actually doing here fit into the world 10 or 20 years from now, right? How is this going to survive, right? this specific business versus just the general idea, right? Knowing that, okay, the world's going to be greener 20 years from now, but how does what I'm doing fit into that model of green technology, right? And now that's an example, and this has happened with a lot of businesses in the past, right? And it spells
Yeah.
out disaster for a lot of startups today. And a way to mitigate this, and I know this might sound kind of cliche, but you have to be able to take a step back, from a level-headed perspective, and be able to evaluate your market and business on some sort of definite truths, right? What are concrete that are certain definite truths, and truths that are going to be true 10 or 20 years from now, right? Or going to evolve in the next 20 or 20 years. An example of this might be Tesla, right? Tesla is a big company that we hear about all the time, and electric vehicles, of course, we know are way more efficient than internal combustion engines, right? It's not even a question. So you think about, okay, 20 years down the line, more efficient ways of transportation are definitely going to be something that's going to be used, right? Transportation is going to evolve and become more efficient, right? That's a definite truth. And so, having an answer to this question based on Tesla's perspective are based on definite truths like that, something that we know is concrete, something that we can say, I'm absolutely positive that's true, right? Now, obviously, there can be some nuances, things that happen, year to year, or things that happen every 5-10 years, black swan events like COVID. But in a general sense, you have to base your answer to this on some sort of solid foundation, right? Which allows you to have a better prediction of what you think the world's going to be and how your business fits in that uncertain future you're talking about.
Exactly. I love that. There was this futurist. We went to this future of work last year, and she said at the end of her talk, she said, "The future is under construction, but we all have this role to help build it." So understanding how that works is great. The one example I had, Stephen, add, which is about Facebook. At each kind of milestone, to actually gain more reach, gain more brand recognition, they look back, they step back and look at what the market was doing, what trends were going on. One was the fact that going global, and they needed localization, making sure that international audience could see and view posts and things of that nature. So that was one milestone, localization. Second part was actually looking back, and mobile was getting very big, making sure they had a great mobile platform. Of course, they acquired a couple of companies, but that was one of their actually more focus, is making it be very mobile friendly. And then one of the last things that was very interesting that did gain more reach was the fact that in places that didn't have internet connection, didn't have access, those people would never be able to access Facebook, but they made some initiatives to make sure that there's internet access in places that weren't there. And of course, once that was created, that access and that reach broadened for Facebook. So looking back, having that type of strategy and looking at trends also helps companies become more durable.
Yeah, and I love that. Those are some great stories. That's some great advice. Yeah.
Now I know in a lot of ways we try to keep this kind of compact, this bite-sized part. But any final thoughts, Stephen?
Well, I would just say, if you really like this question, feel free to check out the other 5, and then the 7th one we'll talk about next. This is an exciting series, and I'm sure we'll do more of these on different topics, different books, different ideas. But if you have a chance, feel free to give us a like. Feel free to leave a comment below. If we'd love to hear your thoughts. We want to learn from you as much as you might want to learn from us. So feel free to leave your thoughts. If you have a question, feel free to leave that. If it's something we can't answer, we'll try to point you on to somebody who can. But as always, thanks for checking in, and we'll see you in the next video.